A lot just happened in 365 days.
A lot.
And before we move forward into 2021, I think it's important that we stop for a second and really recap and reflect on what just happened. It's been an especially painful year for many, but from that pain, there are lessons we can learn to better ourselves in 2021. While this may not be the most fun talk to have, I think it's healthy and maybe even necessary conversation to have with ourselves. Please note that all of these observations and insights will not always apply to everyone, but I think the majority will. Let's go. Starting off with where things really kind of started going downhill, and that was the global spread of COVID-19 in early-ish March. Obviously, pandemic life looked quite different for frontline workers, so thank you to frontline workers who tirelessly put themselves at risk every day. For the many that quarantined at home, now that we had free time, now that we've been forced to stop from always going, what did we do? Well, without all the busyness of everyday life distracting us, we realized what is essential in our lives. 1. Helping out our community. Whether that be supporting small businesses or volunteer work, helping out neighbors, we saw the true value in maintaining our communities. 2. Interaction with friends and family, connecting with them, keeping in touch with them. In pre-pandemic life, we may have been so focused on everyday life, we might not have had the chance to call an uncle or text a grandmother or DM an old friend. And with all of this isolation, many of us realized that we missed human interaction and how precious it really is. 3. Reducing our impact on the environment. While it may not have been an intentional decrease because we just couldn't go anywhere, we did see smog emissions lower and got a glimpse of a more eco-friendly world. 4. Exercising and going outside. Who knew? Surprisingly, people didn't seem to like being trapped indoors, and a newfound sense of appreciation for nature took hold. Many people even started frequently exercising and dieting, and sales of hiking and biking equipment increased dramatically. Now that people had time, they realized the essential idea of being physically healthy. Online workouts even became super popular, shout out Chloe Ting, and that leads me into my next point, which is the importance of virtual entertainment. Virtual entertainment obviously skyrocketed during lockdown. Some examples include the surge of the app TikTok, where a whole new culture was created, watching and playing video games such as Animal Crossing, Valorant, Minecraft SMPs, Among Us, just to name a few. People connected through common shows they'd seen, like Tiger King. The pandemic really showed us how essential virtual stimulation is to our culture and our dependency on its escapism. Not only did we have an emphasis on virtual entertainment, but also on virtual communication. Our minds were put to the test as we adapted to this new, physically isolated way of life, created alternative forms of social events, and discovered new uses of existing communication. For example, many schools and work went online and set a new virtual path for their establishments. Events such as graduations, dates, birthday parties, talk shows, weddings were all held online, which, when you think about it, is pretty incredible. In a span of weeks, we transitioned to a whole new digital way of life. In addition to digital gatherings, we also took the rules mandated by the CDC, social distancing, mask wearing, and took those same similar social gatherings and applied them to a new set of circumstances. Yes, I'm aware not everyone abided by these rules, and I'll get to that later. But for now, these new strategies and ways of communication brought to the surface by the pandemic really showed the flexibility and innovation potentially stored inside of all of us. And in the future, these new methods of communication will most likely stick around. Another thing to note is its extreme power. One person can upload a video from their device, and in a matter of minutes, people all over the country, even the world, can view it from their own handheld device. And this phenomenon was crucial to igniting the growth of the Black Lives Matter movement. The aforementioned video was a video of a man named George Floyd being held under restraint and eventually murdered by police officer Derek Chauvin, which quickly circulated social media platforms in a matter of days. Floyd and his story represent the story of so many other Black people and minorities in America, and even the everyday struggle against racism that they face. Another reason for the growth of this movement was that people now had time to devote to realizing what was essential again, receiving liberty and justice for all. The Black Lives Matter movement is a movement against racism dedicated to advocating for the rights and fair treatment of people of color. Protesters against injustices were violently suppressed in the streets by government and police forces for fear of their privilege being threatened. Sadly, the same pattern seems to continue. A person of color is killed by an officer, the officer is not held accountable, people riot and protest the injustice in the streets and are violently suppressed, and justice is not received. With the outrage starting to build among masses, we also saw social media take on a form of activism. Everywhere you looked, people were advocating for fair treatment left and right, and I would like to say that this movement was effective, but as the time passed, people's feeds inevitably started trickling back to normal, because it was the easy and comfortable thing to do. Protests were less frequent, and it can be deduced that real change did not occur. Many are still not being held accountable, and my gathering is that through these virtual means, a lot of performative activism took hold. Yes, it did positively raise awareness and understanding for many, and provided people with a new lens through which to look at the world. But the issue is that everyone could be aware of racism, but since it is so deeply implanted and normalized in everyday life in our society, that going forward, systemic change is the only major key that will help mend the broken system. Transitioning to a new topic, we've lost a number of really great people this year. Both well-known people and not well-known people. As of right now, we've lost almost 1.8 million people to the coronavirus worldwide. And I'm sure there's someone in your life you know who has passed this year from whatever it might be, and I'm really sorry. Mortality is a really heavy, depressing thought, and it's one that's unfortunately now more common thanks to COVID. Know that you're not alone, and there's always someone to reach out to, and we will remember and cherish those who have passed this year and move forward with them forever in our hearts. And lastly, a bit more spicy topic, the infamous 2020 presidential election and its effects on the people. Now, just as a preface, I'm going to try my best to project an unbiased observation of what went down, because it is quite a contentious matter, and I would like for this to be as factually inference-based as possible. Okay, with that being said, whether you like him or not, there's no denying that President Donald Trump has really split the American people. The bipartisan gap is now just kind of like... This has led to a lot of hostility and division within the nation, especially enhanced during the climax of the presidential campaign. A lot of right and wrong, a lot of hate, a lot of Karens, a lot of lib charts and snowflakes and trumpets, and identifying with a political party makes one prone to stigmatization, and there's constant demeaning of the other side. How did this major split happen? Well, my theory is that Trump's presidency simply exposed and enhanced what was always there to begin with in America. Many of his policies negatively impacted those who were vulnerable in society and favored those with more money, as seen by the growth of millionaires during lockdown. This division among the people was also reflected in our leaders during a few debates. Will you shut up, man? Where I questioned my sanity more than once. We even saw Kanye West run for president of the United States. Like,
why are you running? Why are you running?
Why are you running? But that really reaffirmed that anyone can run for president. Yet another flaw in our system. In the end, it was a pretty close race. Even though the election was officially declared over and Biden won, 74,223,744 people and 46.9% of the Electoral College voted for Trump. So while there may be a new president, the animosity between both sides is not yet over. How do we fix that? That's a good question. Comment your ideas down below, like and subscribe, just kidding. The only thing I could think of was education, open-mindedness, and respect, but obviously that's a lot easier said than done. Moral of the story, I'm moving to New Zealand. Well, that was a lot to unpack, but hey, look at me, you're here. You survived it all. You survived 2020. That should be one of those I survived books, but seriously, You made it through everything that was thrown at you this year, and for that, you should be proud of yourself. It was a tough year, and that toughness really forced us to realize what was essential, apply problem-solving and creativity skills, and raise awareness for certain injustices. And well, who knows exactly what the future holds. With the vaccine, things are looking up, and perhaps after this challenging year, we are now better equipped to take on 2021 and whatever it may bring us. Happy New Year. The aforementioned video. Ow! Why have I done? My computer is making weird sound. Do you hear that? That's my computer. What is happening? This is my Bernie Sanders impression. I think it's a pretty good Bernie Sanders impression. And pandemic life, it was weird. Because normally, I don't cook, I don't clean. But let me tell you, I got this. Folks at home, we're doing a terrific job on the economy because of my very large IQ. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Hamilton on Disney Plus was the highlight of the year.